Joining me today is Artistic Director Adrian Sylveen, who I want to talk to about the opera Tristan and Isolde that he's directing by Richard Wagner. Can you tell us a little bit about Wagner and why you chose Wagner for this season?
Wagner is a legend in the operatic world. He changed the way we think about the theater. He changed this from the theatrical perspective, about which you probably know more than I, but also from the musical perspective. He was one of these incredible geniuses that somehow managed to, in his lifetime, change the way we look at the theatrical work. We look differently at the opera as an art form, where we change the depth and size and to some degree the intensity of what that art form can do for us. Wagner creates something so, first of all, human, and he uses every single element to that point.
So, can you talk to us a little bit about Wagner's music and how his music is different from someone, say, like Puccini or Mozart?
Well, Puccini is later, but let's say the Verdi for that matter,
Okay.
and Rossini would be another example of Mozart is really the best here, I suppose. Um, the leitmotif, the theme motif in Wagner, which is associated with a particular character, plays with our subconscious. In other words, every time a person does something on stage, that music comes back. Therefore, that music sort of is engraved in our subconscious quite from the beginning. And so, case in point, in our Tristan and Isolde production, the first music we hear is the music of love. And every time the subject of love, of relationship between Tristan and Isolde comes up, that very music comes back in different content, in different environment, and not always with a happy ending, obviously, but it's there. So we are conditioned to think along these lines. It's not very far-fetched from Hidden Message of Coca-Cola, I suppose, but Wagner was first. Right? So
Subliminal.
That's right,
Yeah.
exactly. So that is first thing. Second, he was the one who demanded an absolute sort of submission to the artistic idea. So eventually he ended up having his own theater and total artistic freedom to whatever he wanted to do in Bayreuth. But his life is an example of what it takes to demand that, to be so uncompromisingly creative. Yeah. That to this day, I think commands a great respect among many artists, not just musicians. I think theater people as well.
And can you talk a little bit about Tristan and Isolde? Why did you choose this opera?
Well, because I'm quite a romantic person, I didn't want to go into the German mythology and all that. This is the second Wagner opera for me. We've done The Flying Dutchman, which is another quite romantic story. And I just wanted to do something that, on one hand, is true Wagner, and Tristan is certainly the Wagnerian opera. More so than The Flying Dutchman, which is a little earlier. But at the same time, it is not a cycle. It's not this ginormous undertaking that we simply don't have the resources to do.
And could you talk a little bit about working with some of the principals in the piece, Aaron and Jenna, and Steve's a company member who we've seen so many times on the stages? And
well, let me first say this, that this is probably the best cast we ensembled as a whole, as the best internal dynamic we've had so far. These are fantastic singers, but also fantastic colleagues, which very often, you have artistic personalities that don't always fit, and here they do. So it's really, really a great show, also because I didn't have to stage every single element. They knew they fit into each other to the degree that sort of made my work much easier. So that was very good. These are great singers. Tristan is from the Metropolitan Opera.
Yes.
He's terrific.
He's making his Broadway debut later this year at
That's
Lincoln
right.
Center. So
That's
this
right.
season.
That's right. So he has been around for for some very significant jobs so far, and I think that you can see it in the production.
He's lovely. Yes, he's such a sweet person.
He is.
And
Yeah.
Jenna is new to us.
And she's terrific. She sings Wagner almost exclusively,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of interesting to have that kind of a specialty in this country, this community.
Mm-hmm.
Usually singers sing a lot of things in Wagner's honor. But she does just that. And interesting enough, in Vermont. So there must be some interest in that. Yeah.
So you did something really interesting with the staging, and it's created these arresting visual images, and it's very beautiful, but it also seems very symbolic and metaphorical. Can you talk a little bit about what your thinking was when you made the choices to use the fabric in the staging?
What I wanted to show with this big element is a certain kind of limitation that sort of at first is put on Isolde, right? It's a certain, I would say, bondage, certain kind of she's
Restriction.
Really, restriction. She's imprisoned in her situation,
Mm-hmm.
and then basically, no matter what she does, she's still limited by that element. So, and I think it played well because it can show you that okay, when she's submissive to the situation, she's not suffering, but when she is really trying to get out or do something with that situation, she is suffering. And so that's the beginning of the opera. And I think it played very well. And then, of course, in this particular work, the big problem is that the second act is a very long love scene, and you have to be very careful how they portray that in the live theater. So that was also a very useful element to play with and accomplish that. And then the third act, the same kind of element is portraying the suffering, and of course we don't draw blood on stage, but it represents this, again, this entanglement that Tristan is not able to get out of it, right? And he's basically getting the Isolde spell on him, if you wish.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing, I think it read okay.
It's very beautiful. The images are arresting, and I look forward to capturing some very beautiful images in Middletown this week.
Sorry, Wagner is not 3 to 5 minutes, but we will not change that. We have to let go and sort of prepare ourselves. I remember when I first time went to hear Wagner, I made a mistake of going to the opera and being slightly tired and being physically unprepared to just be comfortable with myself for 3 hours, right? So one has to plan for it. There's no question about it. But the experience is breathtaking.
Yes, no doubt.
So,
Thank you, Adrian.
thank you, John.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you. We hope to see you at the opera.